Good morning. For those of you joining, welcome to the GCBI Summit. My name is Christina Riboldi. I'm the executive producer of the program. There are many of you that I know, but for those of you that don't know me, please come find me if you have any questions. I'm happy to facilitate connections for you. For those in the back of the room that are just joining, there are plenty of seats up front, so please move forward. As we move and transition into the next portion of the program, I had a bit of deja vu, because Andrew and Gareth were actually on stage last year. Gareth was just starting up at BP. I invited them both to come back to do a little bit of a report card talk, and I appropriately titled the session Getting a Grip. And I think in my mind, I was thinking last year was a chaotic scene. For whomever was here last year, we had atmospheric rainfall in rivers. We had a bank collapse. It was very difficult times for this community, but I think we got through it. And I'm really looking forward to having Gareth Burns, head of BP Ventures, join us back on the stage to talk a little bit about the evolution of BP Ventures under his leadership and where they're going. And I appreciate Andrew Harper returning back to the stage from Sidley to facilitate the dialogue. So please, Gareth and Andrew, please join me on stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Hi, Gareth.
Hello again.
How have you been? So it's good to see you, of course. It's been about a year since we spoke, and I think the last time we spoke on this stage, you had joined BP very recently. I want to say a couple weeks. Is that
maybe
months?
A couple of months. I was probably still underwater at that stage, looking at the surface of the water to come up for air.
So very new. We talked a lot about your vision for the last year. So it'd be great if you could just update us and tell us how it's been.
Yeah,
how has your vision evolved, and how have you executed, and what's happened?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back. It's been great to come back, and I have to say I feel slightly more relaxed this year than last year, given I've now been with the company for over a year. So over the past year, we've refreshed our investment strategy. We've sort of restructured the team a little bit. And we're now sort of going after our new investment strategy, which is focused around BP's transition growth engines. So for those of you who don't know what they are, BP has 5 transition growth engines: EV charging, convenience, hydrogen, renewables and power, and bioenergy. And so over the next few years, BP Ventures' investment strategy will be focused around those efforts, and we expect over 90% of our capital to be deployed in those sort of 5 different areas.
Excellent. And so with that kind of renewed vision and focus, were there any changes at BP? Were there any additions or pivots or what have you?
Yeah, so it's been an eventful year for me, just getting to grips with the new portfolio. And sort of obviously BP Ventures has been around for coming up on 20 years now. And so there were a number of companies in the portfolio that we've invested in historically, have delivered good strategic value, but are no longer sort of relevant to the 5 transition growth engines. And so as part of that, we've been looking sort of how do we sort of reshape the portfolio. But then I've also, with the expectation that the company has of sort of BP Ventures helping give insight to where the energy transition is going, there's a great interest from a corporate perspective in us bringing some of that strategic insight back into the organization. And so as we look to deploy capital, we tend to invest over sort of 3 different time horizons. Sort of near term, helping the business improve their bottom line sort of within the next sort of 5-6 years. And then a medium term horizon, how could some of those transition growth engines be disrupted? And then also looking out further in time, sort of what could in the future become sort of future growth platforms for the company. And I thought it was interesting, Chase in the last talk was talking about sort of Coke looking for opportunities that could create something new for the corporate, and that's an element of the sort of furthest time horizon that we invest over. Again, looking for ideas of where the energy transition is going to go, and that's all part of sort of BP's ambition to be a net zero company by 2050. So sort of that's how we sort of look to sort of bring that strategic insight in. But in terms of were there any changes to to how we go about doing things? One of the things that's important for me is that we are delivering both financial value and strategic value, and those sort of different companies have different sort of ambitions for their sort of venture units. In my mind, in order for us to deliver good strategic value, we've got to be investing in companies that actually fit with our strategy. But in order for us to get access to good opportunities, we've got to be investing in companies that could deliver a good financial return. And so balancing those two elements can sometimes be a tension, but it's something that we're more focused on now than we were last year.
For sure. I mean, when you look at these growth engines, climate change or energy transition, last year we actually spoke a lot about what's happening domestically. The IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, had recently been passed. I think it's become apparent in the last year that if you're looking at the future in this space, you have to be looking globally. So BP has certainly been a leader in the area. So can you just talk a little bit about how BP fits their strategy within the global venture landscape?
Yeah, so if you look at the BP Ventures portfolio today, probably 2/3, maybe even 70% of the portfolio is based in North America. So the team have done a great job at actually building a position here, and it's no surprise that the US continues to be an important part from a ventures perspective. But from a BP perspective, the US is also a very important sort of country for us. However, we are a global organization. We do have a global brief. And it's one of my hopes that over the coming years we'll begin to sort of increase our position in sort of different parts of the globe. Over the course of the last few years, we've made some recent investments, particularly in India, which I can sort of talk about a little bit more if that's of interest, but also other parts of the Asia Pacific region. And your previous question asked about sort of changes that I've made. I sort of reshaped the team so that we have sort of a regional focus in the Americas, Europe, and the rest of the world. And that in part, that rest of world element is in part because as we see the energy transition continuing, I do believe that energy will continue to become more electrified and more decentralized, and therefore it's important to get closer to where the energy market is. And so I anticipate there will be more opportunities in closer proximity to where the energy demand occurs, which if you look at the sort of population masses, there's considerable energy demand in the likes of Asia, and so that's an area where I anticipate we'll see more activity.
Excellent. So India has been a frequent topic of conversation, obviously with the geopolitical landscape and things happening across the globe and things, the supply chain for electric vehicles and batteries. India is benefiting immensely from this, and CVCs are looking at India now who have never thought about it before. It's a daunting jurisdiction. They have some draconian laws on record, and it's still an emerging venture market in a lot of ways. Governance isn't as developed, or there are just lots of concerns that people have about India. How do you get comfortable investing in a jurisdiction like that?
So moving to BP, I'm very fortunate that BP has a long legacy in India. So BP has been present there for over 100 years. The Castrol brand is in the top 10 brands in the country. And as a result of that, we are a trusted partner with the government, but we also have a large organization there that enables us to get more comfortable, potentially get more comfortable more quickly than others as a result of our presence and the interaction we have. So in the case of India, we have on the oil and gas side, I think we account for about a third of the domestic gas production, and we account for about 5% of the domestic oil production. So again, we're an important sort of corporate player in the energy space, and then also as a result of sort of the Castrol engagement, and also we have a joint venture with Reliance called GOBP that is focused on this sort of mobility space. So again, we've a number of different touch points which enables us to sort of engage across a broad range of different stakeholders. And then when it came to sort of investing in the space, when I was at Equinor, one of the challenges we had was actually getting comfortable with it because we didn't have a large presence there. Sort of coming to BP again because of that presence, I was sort of pleased to see we've made 2 significant investments both in the mobility space. So we've invested in, I don't know whether the audience will have heard of BlueSmart, but I'm pretty sure you'll have heard of Uber and Lyft, which BlueSmart is an all EV sort of Indian equivalent of Uber or Lyft, and because of sort of some of the characteristics within the sort of the Indian market, the concept of a driver providing their own vehicle is challenging, and BlueSmart have come up with a solution to that provides an electric vehicle that is therefore clean, and from our broader sort of corporate agenda of helping the world get to net zero, sort of providing electric vehicle transportation will hopefully go some way towards helping India transition to a sort of cleaner sort of fuel environment. And if you look at some of the sort of pollution statistics, depending on which source you go to, there's sort of approximately 50% of the sort of top 50 most polluted cities in the world are in India. And so again, if we're able to help India clean up some of the transportation activities, that will hopefully sort of also contribute to helping the world sort of get to net zero.
Definitely, definitely. So you had the fortunate position of having deep roots, being at an organization that has deep roots and a large presence in India. Do you feel like for other CVCs who are thinking about getting into this space, do you think that's a requirement? Because you'll often hear people say that you need boots on the ground in India. It is a very unique place. It's complex, and it's a different market in lots of ways. Do you feel like that's a requirement to have boots on the ground?
I don't necessarily think it is a requirement. I think it is a great benefit, but there are other ways of doing and sort of building a presence there. So again, speaking to the BP experience, sort of through the Lightsource BP, which is our solar sort of initiative, we have participated in Eversource's fund there, which is investing in sort of growth opportunities there. And so sort of the Eversource fund is, I think it's approximately $700 million sort of growth equity fund. And I think looking at those types of opportunities is a way of actually building a presence there, and then sort of getting more comfortable. Sort of we have also invested in like from a BP Ventures perspective, we've invested in Australia as well. And we've sort of a few other investments across the region. But again, the investments in Australia sort of were a good fit with our sort of strategic agenda, and then also sort of other parts of the company we're looking to sort of deepen our presence there. And so again, I think sort of as many will know, as Christina mentioned in her introduction about last year and sort of some of the challenges we had with Silicon Valley Bank, sort of you never know where the surprises are going to come from and where they're going to arise, and it is helpful to have some form of presence to deal with some of those issues.
Definitely makes sense. I think one other thing that is starting to develop is the domestic CVC in India. Historically, corporates just haven't done much investing. They're just very conservative, and you didn't see it very often. Starting to see that grow pretty quickly now. Times of India is doing a lot of investing, and some of these late-stage startups even that are multi-billion-dollar companies now are doing a lot of CVC investing. Do you see that as competition, or do you see that as a benefit because you're getting, the founder community more comfortable with CVCs just generally?
So I think for sort of venture capital investment to be successful, you need a combination of different activities. You need to have a sort of vibrant sort of founder community, and we're looking to sort of invest in entrepreneurs who have sort of great ambitions for what they're trying to do. And sort of again, seeing that in India has been great. Another company we invested in is Magenta Mobility that again, the founder there saw the potential for last mile delivery opportunity within India, which again, in the likes of the UK, the US, Europe generally, sort of Amazon and some of the other sort of larger companies that we're familiar with will handle a lot of that last mile delivery, but that doesn't happen in India. And again, Magenta Mobility saw the opportunity to actually provide sort of electric transportation in both the sort of 3- and 4-wheeler segment, which helps the likes of Amazon, etc., to deliver on their ambitions to reduce their emissions. And then it's the combination of the entrepreneurs, sort of local investors, and sort of larger investors like ourselves. So again, it's getting that balance right. I think if you look at across our portfolio, we've got a broad range of sort of co-investors, and so irrespective of whether one's looking at the US or other regions in the world, sort of getting a coalition of the willing investors is part of the challenge we have in terms of ultimately sort of helping the world get to net zero. Sort of we've all got to participate in that, and it's going to require entrepreneurs, local investors, and larger corporate investors like ourselves.
Awesome. Yeah, I completely agree with the coalition of investors. Another group that's coming in really rapidly the last 2-3 years especially have been sovereigns in the Middle East, out of Singapore. Have you noticed an increase in activity among sovereigns, and do you think that's going to continue to help grow this ecosystem?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. In some respects, it brings us back to sort of your intro as well, referring to the Inflation Reduction Act. So we do see sort of various sort of sovereign wealth funds investing more actively as part of our engagement across the sort of broader Asia-Pacific region. We have sort of an increasing interaction with some of the large investors from the Asia-Pacific region. And one example to give, sort of another portfolio company we have is a company called Ever that's developing a geothermal solution, and they're currently building a their first commercial plant in Germany. And one of the recent sort of investors in that company was the Canadian response to the Inflation Reduction Act. And then we have also got we've other sort of investments where we co-invest with Temasek and other investors that are again sort of a link to some of the sort of state investors you have from the Asia Pacific region. So again, sort of looking at all of those, sort of we're sort of very keen to explore options to co-invest with other investors who ultimately have the same sort of goal to deliver sort of cleaner energy, sort of cheaper energy and secure energy, which again is part of the sort of BP vision as we look to sort of participate in the energy transition.
Absolutely. Well, we have a minute left. If you had one piece of advice for CVC looking in India or starting to think about it, what would you say?
What would I say? I think the opportunity in India is immense because you've got such you've got a fast-growing sort of middle class that is creating demand, and sort of there are opportunities to tap into that, and from a VC perspective where you get the combination of the demand and the drive that there is to succeed there, I think it's definitely a place to consider for the future.
Excellent. I thought you were going to say just call Andrew, but maybe next year. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.